Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Looks Like We Made It. I'm Issy Howell and I'm joined by Managing Director and Creative Industry Expert Chris to talk all things video marketing. We are the father and daughter who run the video production company Howell Film, and each week we will be discussing all sorts like what happens behind the scenes on our projects, getting results from your video content, how to start using video in your business, and plenty more to come. We're always up for candidly conversing about creativity. On this episode, we are discussing podcasting and why we love it. So without further ado, let's get started. And of course, never miss an episode every Tuesday by giving us a follow or subscribe, as well as finding Howell Film on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Let's go.
Let's do it.
Okay. Right, 2022, podcasting. Here we are.
Yes. Wow. 2022. That sounds so space age.
I know.
That sounds like... Did you know one of the characters in The Jetsons, which was a cartoon when I was a kid,
yes,
set way in the future, one of the characters was born in 2022.
That's crazy.
And that would seem like, and they flew around in flying saucers, and it was the real future stuff.
It does feel like the future. I mean, even Back to the Future, set in the future, was 2015.
Well,
so, and by now we should have plastic ties and flying cars, but
absolutely.
You know that hasn't happened yet.
So we're already off message. Okay,
yes,
podcasts, why we love them, because they're brilliant.
Yeah. So why did we decide to do this then? What was the Looks Like We Made It?
Well, a number of people
story.
have said, so you're a video production company and you're pumping out lots of audio and no video, which now might be a good time to say we are potentially thinking about doing a pod-vod hybrid thing in the future, just once we can sort out the studio and lose 2 stone.
Well, that's it. It's being appealing to the ears and the eyes,
absolutely.
Which is a challenge in itself for myself.
Definitely.
So.
Podcasts, they're fantastic, purely because it's a platform for industry experts and people who've got an opinion, and it's just a great way of sharing knowledge, expertise, ideas, and really sort of, kind of mixing things up a bit. I think it's one of the main sort of great things that have come about with this kind of like social media resolution, because it's New Year, social media revolution, that I think podcasts are the unlikely kind of winner in that.
I agree. I think it was something that, as someone, well, we both listen to podcasts, and that was something that you listen to them and you think, wow, actually I'm learning something here. That's quite interesting. And while video, we absolutely love video, it's what we do day in, day out. It's nice sometimes to know that it's something that's more transportable, in the sense you could be at the gym, you could be driving, you might not want to be watching a film while you're driving. That's maybe not something we'd advise, but it's ways of absorbing information about something and learning something without having to sort of sit and watch, which actually does come in handy.
Absolutely. Well, and as we know, video didn't kill the radio star.
No, we're here. We're alive and kicking.
So in reality, back in the day when everything was video and MTV and there was like radio's dead. There's no future for radio, and actually radio's booming.
Well, it's been reborn in the way of podcasting, and I think that's the thing. I remember when I was a kid, I remember in the noughties there was people would listen to podcasts, but they were quite an underground thing at the time, and they were sort of, you'd have to really, really look for them to find them. But now they are incredibly popular again. There is a whole thing called podcast marketing, and even though we're a video marketing company, podcast marketing is something that does come in handy as well.
Yes, so we need to be a audio marketing company as well as a video marketing company.
But so what do you think you need to start a podcast?
Something interesting to say, hopefully...
Oh no!
Oh no! We've blown it. I think you've got to have something interesting to say. I think you've got to be up for it. You've got to have a degree of some production values, just so it just sounds okay and doesn't sound sort of horrible for people's ears, and a bit of a plan. I mean, we've built Looks Like You Made It into quite a nice platform, and we get lots of really cool feedback, and people are genuinely interested in what we're doing and occasionally in what we're saying. So I think you've got to have something to say. You've got to have a bit of a plan, a bit of an idea. But why not give it a go? Give it a get stuck in. I mean, the eBay's and Amazon are full of sort of microphones and little setups you can do, and why not, and get involved.
Well, I think that's the thing. It's like, I mean, I don't know if you have the thing where when you find a new podcast you want to listen to, and then they've been going maybe for years, and then you think, right, I'm going to start at the very beginning. I'm going to start at the first episode, and sometimes the audio quality isn't there.
Yeah, you can see
it's a bit tinny,
or hear that.
And it's a bit tinny. It's a bit sort of, they may be doing it over Zoom or on their phones. And there is a podcast that I listen to called The Prancing Pony, which is about Lord of the Rings, which is, for all those fellow nerds out there, it's quite interesting. But the first episode, they come back, they return to it, they re-record, well, they put an ad on at the start of it to say, hey, you're about to listen to this, but we sound rubbish. And you go, oh, okay. So they almost acknowledge the fact that they started off not having that, the tech and the things to talk about. They were just sort of doing it because they wanted to do it. But I think that we're very fortuitous in the fact we've got audio recording equipment.
Yeah,
but there are ways that we're going to invest in that further.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think, and we've raised our game a little bit. I mean, I think when we started, it was share a microphone, and we've got one each now. So
I know, we're holding them. It's great.
We're holding them, which is great. So yeah, I mean, I think that the old adage of just because you can doesn't necessarily mean you should. But like I say, why not give it a go?
Well, I think that's the thing. How did you feel when casting way back to when we did our first episode? It was something I'd had the idea for Looks Like We Made It written in my diary since years before, but then it's something that we'd kind of thought, right, okay, now's the best time to do that, and now we've got loads of stuff to talk about, loads of stuff we've learned, let's do it. How did you feel when I forced you to sit in that chair and talk about video marketing?
Well, as you know, you don't need to force me to talk. I've been known to go on and on and on quite a lot. I went for it. It's great. It's something new, isn't it? It's a different string to our bow, and it's a less obvious thing as well, because as I mentioned earlier, that people do say to us, "Hey, video production company, why audio?" So I think I'm up for it. I'm up for anything, really. Try anything once.
Well, so what would be your advice for people who cannot listen to themselves? Because that is the downside. That is the one thing with podcasting, is that as we edit them, we have to listen through them. We have to make sure that they're good. They don't just randomly appear. What do you think? Particularly people who are nervous about even being on camera, on audio, whatever. Yeah,
I mean, we get it all the time, don't we? Where people just don't want to be filmed or just don't want to appear. I don't know. There's a kind of like a technical response and a business response, and then there's a more personal response. I suppose the more personal response would be, well, just get over yourself, really. What are you going to do? You sound how you sound. You look how you look. In my head, I'm a 16-year-old BMX kid. In reality, I'm a overweight, middle-aged business owner.
But they don't know that on a podcast. You've just given it away.
Yeah.
You could have been like, yeah, I look like Captain America.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I don't.
And you are what you are, and I think provided you've got something to say and you believe in it doesn't matter. Don't overthink it.
That's a good point. I agree. I think that's the thing with podcasts. I think the key thing as well to podcasting is being organised. It is. Like any kind of content creation, you don't just want to do it once and then leave your audience hanging. And it's the same for video. If you make one incredible video, you put it on social media, you get thousands of views, and then you go back to using your phone and it's a bit wobbly and a bit wonky, and you think, oh, how am I not getting the same results? It's consistency. Being really consistent. Yeah,
I agree. And I think we've had a couple of gaps, haven't we, where we've had so many mad deadlines or illness or whatever, where we've missed one. And that is weird, because you do get, hey, what's happening, which is nice that people are looking out for us. But then also, it's a commitment. That's the other thing about this sort of thing. If anything's worth doing, it's worth doing well. And it is a commitment. It's a commitment to if you've got an audience, they've made the commitment to listen to you. It's your responsibility to keep content kind of coming their way and keep it fresh and know your stuff. That's the other thing as well. As a podcast shouldn't just be a way of venting and kind of just ranting and raving, and it should all be. You should at least have some interest to somebody on some level, so that there's value in it. Yeah,
and I think that's the thing. It's and you have to enjoy it as well. I think it's it has to be something that you want to do, even though you might be really busy. And, but that's where the organisation part comes in, is that you can prepare it to a certain point, you can batch record, you can do all sorts of different things. That means that they sort of go off without a hitch for 3-4 weeks in advance. But sometimes, yes, there are gaps, there are times where life gets in the way and everything. But as long as you are relatively consistent and you keep that going, that's what's really important.
Absolutely, yeah. And also it's quite nice once you have got an audience that they can feed back to you and say, well, yeah, we like that, or we didn't like that, or hey, can you just give us your thoughts and feelings on this aspect of the industry? So there's once that kind of two-way street opens up, that's really nice, because you can, it's not just you talking about yourself and what you've done. It's actually sharing, some of the experiences that you've got and some of the knowledge you've got to an increasingly wider audience. Hopefully, it's a bit like lobbing a stone in a pond and it ripples out and away it goes.
Do you think that? I mean, in what ways do you think that podcasting and the way we do it and everything can help your business? Is it just focused on getting more sales, or is it focused on?
I don't know. I mean, it's like anything, isn't it? It's this quote has been attributed to.
Oh God! Here we go.
Loads of people over the years.
I thought 2022 was a way to change this. But go on then.
No, well, the famous quote: "The half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The only trouble is I don't know which half."
I thought you were going to say it depends. I was prepared for that.
No, that's new for 22. New for 22 is I'm not saying it depends as much. But my point is, we don't do everything for commercial gain. I don't. It's I don't know. That's a kind of a route I'm not that bothered about sort of pursuing all the time. Is it good for business? Who knows? Maybe not. What it does do, I suppose, is it gives people an insight into what we're about. So if someone wants to come over to our offices and meet us, they've got an idea of what we're going to be like.
What we sound like.
What we sound like, at least. But also, if people want to learn about kind of the ethos and the kind of the culture of the organisation, again, that comes across. We're serious about what we do, but we're not kind of like serious people all the time.
And I think that's the thing. We are, I mean, particularly me and you, we are a unique business in the fact that we are a family business. We do have that element where, we're family, so we should show that side of us, I suppose. And I really enjoy it. I think it's been something that you kind of look forward to recording.
You enjoy being in a family. You enjoy making a podcast.
Yeah, both. Well, both have the upsides and downsides. But no, I really enjoy running a podcast. I think it's a lot of fun. But it is something that we want to develop even more in the future, because we love talking about stuff.
So. Yeah, but we could have a spin-off series.
Well, it looks like we, I don't know, didn't make it. I don't know.
Okay, come on then. What's the best podcast? What's your favourite podcast?
Oh, are you asking me the question this week? The closing question.
The closing question. What is your favourite podcast?
And you know what's really impressive is that I was going to ask you that same question.
Well, come on, we can bounce it around. Go on then.
Okay, I've got a few, but my all-time favourite podcast has to be something called The Dollop. And that is a podcast where it's two American comedians who essentially, one of them researches a crazy thing in history or a crazy situation in history and then tells that story to another comedian, and it is the funniest thing ever. There have been times where I've had to pause it while I'm driving, because if I keep listening to it while I'm driving, I'll just laugh myself off the road. So I have to be very careful with it. It's a very, very funny one. But there's there's lots of different ones I like to listen to. The other one, if I was going to go for more of a history vibe and less of a comedy vibe, would have to be, but still kind of comedy, would be You're Dead to Me by BBC.
Okay.
Which is a history one where a comedian and a historian talk about, again, events in history. I do like history, so that is what I choose to listen to. But there are so many out there to choose from. But what about you? Tell me about you.
Well, I suppose, maybe some sort of, I suppose with me it's three areas. So there's like techie ones where it's people talking about, cables and
Fun stuff.
Memory sticks and hard drives and stuff. Anything to do with motorsport, so maybe F1 Beyond the Grid. I love all that. Really deep down stuff. Which is interesting as well. Like if you think of motorsport, think of F1 or MotoGP or whatever. Very visual. But really brilliant podcasts.
Is it just meow? Is that what you do?
No, it's not meow. No. And I suppose, and finally, just as a kind of sort of a secret indulgence. I really like Unexplained
I do
by
love that
Richard
podcast.
McLean Smith. Just spooky, daft,
Yeah.
great, love it, and really well researched though. Real high production values. Just like if you just want to get your headphones on and just do some work and listen to some stuff in the background.
Yeah.
Really, really like that. My other problem though with podcasts is I sometimes think, I'm just going to have it on, and then I just stop and I listen, and it does hamper productivity when you just deep into, particularly like one of these. If it's very technical or it's really, really fascinating or it's a story or whatever, then that's a problem that you can just sit and listen as opposed to.
Well, I
work.
tend to listen to podcasts when I'm driving, and you can tell when I'm listening to a podcast when I'm driving because I drive slower. So it's an odd thing. It's that I'll look down at my speedometer and I'm like, oh my god, I need to speed up a bit because you get so kind of enthralled by what you're listening to.
You need to focus on the road.
I know, well, I am. I'm focusing and listening at the same time, which obviously is not something I'm capable of doing. But that was I knew I had a question to ask you at the end. It wasn't that one. This is the final question of the day. If you could run a podcast that wasn't related to video marketing, what would your podcast be on?
My podcast would be on probably motorsport, boringly, or pottery.
That's a very different one to go for. Why?
Well, I don't know. I just think that I just like the idea of like people talking about creating things. I like the idea of people discussing things like. So I love like the pottery throwdown, and I'd love to meet Keith. And I'd love to see him cry. I just like just anything creative and kind of
soothing.
Just people. I love passionate people. I think people who are just into stuff. I love it. So it'd be very general. It'd just be genuinely real people who love what they do. And that, because I've got a theory, and is that if you watch, listen to, or spend time with people who are good at what they do or the best at what they do, that's a privilege.
Absolutely. I think, and that's why I'm sat here with you.
Stop it. Right.
But yeah, well, I'd say mine would probably end up being in the realm of where every podcast goes, something history based. I'd like to talk about history. Yeah. It's where my nerdy side comes out. Either that, or if I could combine some kind of history podcast with video editing, if I could bring those two together in some way, I would probably do that. But yeah, you'll see 2 more podcasts being released very soon. Those two very bizarre approaches. Chris is doing one on pottery as we speak. He's actually at a kiln as we speak. So anyway,
it's a wheel, not a kiln.
You'd use a kiln, wouldn't you?
Well, you would use a kiln when you were going to fire your pot.
You could be right next to one of those. Anyway, right, okay. So if you do want to keep listening to us, that's great. I hope we haven't put you off with this episode. But if you do like podcasting and you do like podcasts, then obviously we've got a good one here. Please listen every Tuesday when we do release our podcast. And you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. But you can also listen to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And you can also listen to it on www.howellfilm.co.uk. So we'll see you next week. Have a great week and goodbye.
Take it easy. Bye.